Good morning, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. Thought I'd do another chapter of Cantillons' essay on economic theory. This is chapter 7, and it's titled "The Labor of the Plowman is of Less Value Than That of the Artisan." And I love this essay. It's written back in the 1700s, but a lot of what he is saying still applies today. And what he is saying, that the labor of the plowman is of less value than that of the artisan, he goes on to explain it like the plowman. You got to think back in the day, the plowman was like the unskilled labor. Didn't take a whole lot of training, couldn't really screw it up. At the end of the day, just about anybody could do it. So like being a plowman was like the basis of all like unskilled jobs. But then if you can imagine like a carpenter back in the day, this was a unique position. Like you had to have special training and understanding, experience in order to be like real good at being a carpenter and getting paid for it. Then, you were obviously going to have to get paid more than if you were going to be a plowman, or than the plowman would get paid, just because there's a limited amount of carpenters out there. So what Cantillon goes on to explain is that the efforts of training, or the skills going into an individual, that burden has to be shifted to someplace, and the reward for it has to be more than what that burden is. So if you are a plowman and you want something better for your kids, and you're plowing the earth to pay for somebody to go to college like your children, then whatever it is, that skill that your child learns must pay more than being a plowman, or else the plowman would never do it. You see what Cantillon is trying to get at here? And then also, like if it's an apprenticeship program, like I need help with carpentry, but I don't have anybody to help me. So I'm going to show somebody how to be a carpenter. There is a time and cost associated with that before the person can actually get to the point where their skills are now, beneficial to you. So that burden is shifted to somewhere. And then once that training has happened, that's when the profitability comes in. So if you have a skill that is unique, then it will necessarily pay more than a skill that anybody can do. But he also went on to say that it's easy for, say, somebody to train their children. Okay, well, I'm going to be a carpenter, I'm going to teach my son to be a carpenter, which is fine so long as the area doesn't have a lot of carpenters in it. But if everybody in the area is a carpenter, then there's no point in training your kid to be a carpenter, because your kid's not going to be in any kind of benefit by having this skill that everybody else already has. Might as well be a plowman, right? Okay, so I think about that when I think about degrees, and how many degrees that people have. But then also, it's really hard for a lot of people who are starting off at this like plowman position. Right? You're gonna be like, a plowman doesn't really expand. Like if you plow the earth and that's all you do, that's all you'll ever do. But if you're a carpenter, the first thing you're probably gonna end up doing is cleaning up and doing a bunch of laboring stuff that the carpenters don't want to do. And this is something that I experienced as a foreman on a job site. We had our crew. It was a fairly new crew, so they didn't all really work together yet. They'd only been together for a few weeks. You have your laborers, you have your carpenters. And being the foreman of the job site, my job is to make sure that the project is in a continual state of progression, like there is constant production taking place. Part of that is having a steady flow of materials going to the carpenters. Now, when I went to the laborers on this particular day that I was thinking of, I told them, I said, hey, I went to one of them, I said, hey man, go grab your buddy, get this plywood packed up to the second floor. All right, I'm going to go up onto the roof. And as I'm running up there, I hear him say, well, it would be a lot easier if we all did this. And I said, yeah, just get it up here, right? And he kind of threw a little bit of a fit about it. So I had to go down and explain to him. I said, listen, man, I said, this project needs a steady flow of materials taking place. I said, you and your buddy need to make that plywood go to Dan. Dan needs to cut it and hand it up to me so that I can be nailing it down. And this is the way that it needs to go from now on. Do you understand that? You're being paid $16 an hour to do labor. These guys are being paid $28 an hour to do carpentry. I am not paying them, or the boss, I wouldn't give a shit, I wasn't paying anything. But the boss does not want to pay $28 an hour for guys to move plywood. He wants to pay $28 an hour to see guys nail plywood down. I said, so you need to move this stuff because that is your job. That's yours, and I forget the other guy's name, but that's your guys' job. You do that. Man, did he have an attitude, but he got that plywood packed fast, right? He was power mad about it. And him and his buddy, they had that plywood packed up there right away. I had him do a few other things, and I said to him, I said, well, man, if you're done with that, cut that sheet of plywood. Get a saw up here and cut that thing in half for me. So next thing you know, he was cutting a few sheets with Dan. Him and Dan were cutting his plywood up, handing it up, and I said, well, you know what? Even better yet, why don't you grab a nail gun and you go over there and start nailing the sheathing off that we have tacked down over on the other side of the roof. So next thing you know, over there, tack, 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 tack. At the end of the day, I told him, I said, you keep this up and you keep that plywood and the materials moved as much as you have, then you'll be cutting a lot more lumber and you'll be tacking it down in place. You'll be nailing it into place. Once he kind of understood that concept, the material, as soon as it hit the ground, was in place. Like, he knew what was showing up before it showed up. Like, he would ask about it. He was like, what are we doing today? What's going on? And he would have that material move so quickly and so efficiently that he was there ready with his saw and his nail guns ready to do work. And I was like, okay, this is a guy who wants to learn. He finally figured it out. So about, 6 months later, he went from making $16 an hour to $22 an hour. And he was in charge of telling people where to put the plywood and where to pack the lumber to. A little bit more time goes on, and he's making $25 an hour, and we were getting laid off. I went off to a lumber yard. I don't know what the other guys did. And he says, I'm taking the skills, and I'm going to go do something with it. And he started building decks for people and fences. He painted houses. The guy took the skills that he learned over the course of 6 months and started making money with it. You know, it just took a little bit of time, a little bit of effort, and a little bit of understanding for him to kind of get it and know that once he got this training, then he could do something with it. But in order to get the training, he had to do the labor first. You can't go, you can pay somebody to show you, or somebody can take on effort saying, I'll take a loss in order to show you, or you just learn bit by bit by being on the job. So I think about that a lot. Like, people say, they say all the time, it's like, this job doesn't pay enough. And I was just like, of course this job doesn't pay. No job pays enough. Even the job that's ahead of this one, like getting an advancement, that job won't pay enough. I mean, the whole point of even working hard so that you can get up there is so that you can continually try and get more money. I mean, nothing pays enough. Never in the history of time did anything that anybody has ever done ever paid enough. I mean, it's like, I don't even understand when people say, yeah, if they paid me more. I was like, well, that don't make no sense. Go to work hard, work your way up. Yeah, you're going to have to take on a lot more responsibility that isn't worth it, but you'll be paid more. I don't know what you're asking for. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Uneducated Economist. You guys let me know.